let's fire it up
All right,
here.
Here we go. Music.
I love the decor. All right, welcome back to the Okayest Cook podcast. We are on location again. We are not in the kitchen. We are in a gym with Caitlin Green.
Yeah.
Andy Heiser and I are here with Caitlin. We're going to talk nutrition. We're going to talk eating. I don't really know.
Maybe some fitness. We're gonna pop around kind of.
This is their jam.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Andy
let's
and
talk
Caitlin's
about
jam.
the things.
So
yeah.
I'm here to learn, and I'm here to try and become a better version of myself. Via what I'm eating. So, yes, my goal is to learn.
Yeah.
So,
cool.
Yeah. So, Caitlin, if you don't mind introducing yourself and
Yes.
kind of like let us know what you're doing and why should we listen to you?
Yeah.
Are we gonna go into what we eat though, or is that a thing that we're gonna do?
Do you want to do that?
I do.
Okay,
I don't
we
want to
can do
break. We have a thing.
Okay, what's the
Yeah.
thing?
We have a thing.
Okay.
So we start this, and we'll get to you for sure.
Yeah.
But
We'll get
this
to
is
you.
your show. No, we usually start like what's something interesting we've had to eat over the last
Ooh,
week. So
okay.
I'll go first, and that'll hopefully maybe like
Yeah.
spark some stuff, give you some time to think.
Yep.
Hopefully, I think of something because being on location has
thrown that a
jarred
little bit.
my
So this
jarred
is
my mind.
actually this is actually a really interesting one. I was over at a friend's house not too long ago, and she was talking about she had this like kind of like she had like two sets of fruit out. She had like ripe mangoes for like just consuming, and then not ripe mangoes, like tart mangoes. And I was like, what is the difference between the two? And she's like, oh, well, you dip this one into this, and this was salt and like habanero.
Ooh,
And
yum.
so it's like a tart, and it's apparently something that like her dad used to do and has forever. And so it's the thing that like they do in their family, and it's almost always on the table. This is actually, it's Andrea, so it's
Okay.
back to the Dre's Goods.
Yeah.
For
She
free
was
plugs.
putting the sweet ones in
No,
or the tart ones.
Tart ones, and you would just basically like dip the tart one in the salt and
In
habanero.
like almost like a tahini sort of sauce.
Kind of, but
Or,
it's
I
more
mean,
more salt than habanero. So it's like almost like a
Uh-huh.
salty tart with a little kick at the end.
Sounds
Just-
delicious.
It was one of those things where like it's like I don't know if I like this, but all you want is more of it.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Just kind
it
of
was
weird.
interesting. Yeah.
Like
so
a
that
weird
was-
kind of good.
Yeah, it was a weird good. So that was like an
I get that.
interesting. That's probably my most interesting thing I've eaten in the last week.
Okay.
Or so.
Nice.
So
Yes. Well, I made a breakfast skillet. That was pretty dynamite.
okay.
Tons of fresh tomatoes from my garden, tons of fresh herbs from the garden, and like I've never actually done like a skillet. It's like I
Nice.
fried the potatoes and I put them in the cast iron, then I tossed in some scrambled eggs and just cheese, put it under the broil and just let it all melt. The tomatoes kind of like swelled
Yeah.
and split when they get hot. Kind of got just a little
Yes.
char on all of it. And
That's awesome.
yeah, and topped it with a fresh sprig of rosemary. That was pretty dynamite. So.
Nice.
Simple but good.
I don't know if I have anything super interesting. The two things that come to mind is my garden is finally ready, so I can make chimichurri, which I love a chimichurri.
That's a
These
favorite,
guys-
it's a
these guys are
favorite
all
on-
about it.
It's a favorite
Yeah.
on this podcast. For
Yeah.
sure.
So got to make the fresh from the garden chimichurri, and then we have chickens, and we had a
so
chicken
jealous.
recently who was
man.
broody, and because she was broody, not only was she not laying eggs, but she was freaking out the other chickens, so they weren't laying very many eggs, and we really thought we were gonna
so you
have
had
to
some
eat her.
roast
We were
chicken?
giving her some time. Well, we were giving her some time, and it was like
Turning it into a meat burger.
try it a month, and then it was like maybe try it a second month, and she finally got over it, and they're back to laying again. So I made some really delicious sunny side up
Yes.
eggs.
That's awesome.
There is
Yes.
nothing better than just a fresh farm egg. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I'm all over that.
Yeah,
Have you watched The Chef's Table, where like this farmer chef
Uh-huh.
feeds his chicken nothing but peppers, and like the yolks like literally turn like fire red.
Yes, that's a trick I've heard, like adding
'Cause they
cayenne
can't
flakes
taste.
to
Yeah.
their.
Yeah.
We don't do that, but they free range in the backyard. literally all day. So they've got some pretty solid yolks.
That's awesome.
That's perfect.
That's awesome.
I love it. Yeah, we need to bring Colton back to chat with you. Colton's our egg expert.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Chicken.
Oh, cool.
Well, that picture he sent the other day of like he had his like whole like he had
he gave me he gave me a batch and I haven't eaten them yet, but there's like such vibrant collection.
I need to like be more direct with my like, oh, that looks really cool.
Give me some.
Well, you said you'd buy some.
I know.
But he has like olive green eggs, and there's some that are kind of bluish and some that are kind of golden.
Yeah. I just have the one breed, so it's their color is pretty uniform, but they're still delicious.
Yes. He's got like 12 different breeds. I don't know what he has.
He's got quite a collection of birds over there.
So I've heard like the eggs don't actually taste different though, right?
Right.
Like the different colored shells don't matter. It's just
correct. From when I've had different colored eggs, I can't taste the difference. Maybe some people can.
Yeah. It's like tasting, tricks. This box cereal, like the blue one tastes different.
No, it's just more fun to crack. It's all it is.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, now on to you.
Yes.
Now let's make it about you.
Tell us about yourself, Caitlin. And why are we here?
So I'm Caitlin. I am a health coach and a nutritionist. I own Lean Mean Green Health, which Andy actually helped me get started up and running some years ago. And then we are here in my gym. I also own a gym. We do functional fitness, CrossFit style exercises. It's called Mad Farmer Fitness here in Carmel, Indiana.
Yes.
And I have been working in the health and wellness space my whole working career, so about 15 years. I was a rowing coach outside of graduating college. And then from rowing, I found CrossFit, and CrossFit really was my first introduction into what I would call correct nutrition. We've all heard a lot of nutrition advice, and I think there's a lot of bad nutrition advice out there. And as a lifelong athlete, the things I was being told in CrossFit were different than the things I was being told by my doctor and by the people who would come talk to us in high school and in college for athletics. And when I sort of finally okay, I'll give it a shot and made those changes, it was literally life-changing. Right. And it was just sort of like, if I can help other people with this, why wouldn't I? Especially, I love working with athletes, but the two really go hand in hand. I don't think you can really have a quality athlete without the nutrition piece, and I don't think you can be a fully healthy person without the fitness or athletics piece.
Well, in the past episodes, Andy's mentioned like some of his history, talking about like his journey through just eating and working out, and like I guess my biggest takeaways are it's more about what you're eating versus what you're doing. Like, yes, they're both almost equally important, but like if you do all this working out and your diet is just crap, then the working out's not really doing anything.
Well, and
in my mind, that's what I understand.
Yeah. What I like to say is that fitness is built in the gym, abs are built in the kitchen. So you can't outwork your bad diet in terms of aesthetics. You can get more fit. Sure. But that doesn't mean you're going to look more fit, and that doesn't necessarily mean you're healthier, right? It's a component of it, but I think a lot of people think, I'm unhealthy, I'm overweight, whatever it is, I got to make a change. I'm just going to start running. Nothing else is going to change, but I'm going to start running. And it's like, that's awesome, but that does not make healthy. That does not make lean.
It's better than nothing, but it's not going to do what you think it's going to do.
Correct.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah.
Correct. No, and my whole fitness journey was actually guided by Caitlin's nutrition as well. So everywhere, everything that we were able to build along the way was 100% just what she told me to do, and that's what I did. Yeah. So just like I said, just be coachable. But well, let's again on that note of like getting into it. I think the ethos of this podcast in general is that we're just okay at things. Like the idea is like, how do we get a little bit better? So none of us are trained chefs by any means, but we enjoy cooking, we enjoy food, we enjoy the nutrition that comes from it. So that's like what we really want to keep this at today is where like what are some strong takeaways that people can get that maybe haven't really thought about this a lot, or maybe have some strong misconceptions of some things. So some of the what are some of the things that I think that you commonly hear as like, look, like I think I should be doing this, and you're just like, no, bro, that's just wrong.
Yeah. So I think I will start by saying that I have a lot of compassion, I guess is maybe the right word, for people who are genuinely trying, but they just don't know what to do. They feel confused, or maybe they are really trying what maybe a doctor or a family member or just sort of the media has told them, and it's just not working, because there's so much information out there. You can look up anything on the internet and find 5, 10, 20 peer-reviewed research studies that back up anything, right? So it's really confusing. And so I think part of what my job is not just to give people information. People have information. We have to give people curated information.
Yeah.
And so I think the first thing would be to do, like, if it's being sold to you, it's probably not good for you, right? So in other words, like, you don't get a whole lot of people pushing carrots on you, right? You don't get a whole lot of people pushing. I mean, maybe, I'm sure you guys advocate for this.
Only
but
at the farmer's market.
You don't get a lot of people pushing, like, beef liver and, like, farm-raised chicken. Like, you're not fighting, like, big broccoli, right? But you are finding a lot of push for supplements. You are finding a lot of push for packaged things, nutrition bars, protein powders, things like that. And so when you have the option, if you can pick something that's not being pushed, I would go for that. And another way of saying that much more concisely would be the 3 words that I try to have everybody live by: eat real food.
Yeah.
That's it. Just eat real food, and you're 90% of the way there.
Right.
Yeah.
So meats, vegetables, fruits, grains to a degree, keeping an eye on what the grains are and how they've been raised, that sort of thing.
Well, and on that, because again, the 100%, that is, I mean, in working our work together, it's always been the case, and trying to hit certain macro numbers, utilizing real food can sometimes be difficult. And that's where, like, supplements aren't necessarily all bad, but it's a supplement. It's literally in the name, it's not a replacement for food.
Not a cure-all.
So, I mean, are there supplements, I guess, that you do find to be helpful for the everyday person? And then I know, obviously, on an athletic side, I'm kind of leading you towards the things that I already take. For your recommendations. Yeah. But what are some of the things that, look, like, here's how to use these supplements properly?
Yes. So everything's going to be really individual, because not everybody's goals are the same. Not everybody's needs are the same. Yeah. If I had to pick 2 things, and I was thinking about this, 2 things that I pretty much recommend for everybody, no matter what your goals are, who you are, where you're at in life. The first is vitamin D supplementation.
Absolutely.
And it's got to be, you want quality vitamin D. You want it, suspended in some sort of fat. Ideally, that's a healthy fat. So, like, we're not having vitamin D in soybean oil. Maybe it's in coconut oil or something like that. And that's really for a lot of reasons. We live our lives inside. I think a lot of people think, like, I'm in my office all day, but, like, I sit by the window, and it's like the UV rays can't make it through glass. You're maybe getting sun, but you're not getting the sun that's going to give you vitamin D. And then also, depending on where you live, even if you're in the sun, it's only strong enough for you to produce vitamin D certain times of the year. So the further north you live, at least here in the US, the harder it's going to be. Even if it's sunny out, if it's December, you're not making vitamin D. And then we're covered up with clothing, right? We're being told to slather ourselves with sunscreens, whether you use a toxic sunscreen or not, and it's most likely it is a toxic sunscreen, or we're wearing hats, we've got long sleeves on. It's just so far removed from our ancestral health that it just is necessary.
Or if you're like me, like, I love being outside, but I, like, despise being in the sun.
Yeah.
It's like I'm always seeking out tree shade and, like, getting under some sort of cover. Like, I love the breeze, I love being outside, but just pure sunlight, just like, blah.
Yeah, sure.
It's not my friend.
Yeah. And so that would be and vitamin D is really almost impossible to overdose on.
Right. Okay.
Like, you can get too much of a lot of vitamins and supplements, but vitamin D, it is just damn near impossible. And then
good to know.
Just to say one other thing, vitamin D is also, we can store it, right? That's how, like, people like the Inuit would survive and continue to stay healthy, because when it was sunny, they, had the sun, but otherwise the fish they're eating, everything they're eating, it stores it in their fat cells, and then it releases it as your body needs it. So even if you're taking more than you necessarily need on that day, like, even on a day that I'm going out in the sun, I'm still going to take my vitamin D supplement, because I want my body to have a little bit extra to store so that I can release when I need it.
And there's a lot of other benefits, I guess, direct benefits for vitamin D outside of it, the reason behind it. Go into that a little bit about. It's not just about getting the proper amount of sunlight, because you are all sort of plants. But at the same time, like, what are the other major benefits from taking that much vitamin D, or taking a vitamin D supplement?
So vitamin D it's a hormone, right? And your hormones your hormones and your gut bacteria are who you are. Your literal personality is determined by your gut bacteria and your hormones. So having enough of this hormone that your body needs is going to help you be you more. It's going to help with your immune system as well. It's going to help with muscle growth and muscle maintenance. It's hard to like find a system in the body that isn't going to be positively affected
by that. Yeah, by vitamin D.
By vitamin D.
Yeah.
What's the other one?
For almost everybody, it would be a collagen protein powder, which again, I know. Yeah. I've had Andy on that for a long time.
And coffee.
And the reason for that is because even when we get people eating adequate protein, which almost no one does unless they are focused on it, we, especially here in like North America, let's say, we tend to get all of our protein from animal muscle meats, and that makes sense. But ancestrally, we weren't just eating this like nice cut of ribeye or whatever it is. We were eating the collagen. We were chewing the meat off of the bone. We were
Nose
eating
to tail.
Exactly, and those are sort of like the undesirable cuts, right? So unless you're like eating real bone broth, not the kind of stuff that's like comes in a box and it's like already a liquid, the stuff that like turns to gel, you know what I mean? Unless you're eating or making your own bone broth, you're just probably not getting that. And there's that amino acid profile is really important for joint health. It's really important for muscle health. I think it's advertised as this will give you beautiful hair and skin and nails, and some of them will. But for me, more importantly, it's like your joints are important too. Your tendons are, I would argue, more important for them to be healthy than your muscles. And a lot of people are just lacking in that. So unless you're willing to like chew the meat off the bone or like eat the like cartilage, which some of us are. And if you're doing that, then like you probably don't eat it. Don't waste your money. But most of us are not.
Yeah, and it's like, and I will just say this as a user of collagen, it's the easiest supplement to get in because it literally dissolves with no taste, especially like if you're a coffee drinker, like throw that in your cup of coffee. I promise you will not notice the difference between it. Yeah. And it's a great way of getting that in. I mean, it's just a super easy supplement to ingest. So is vitamin D. So most vitamin D supplements, mine's a tincture or whatever, the oil based versus a pill. But again, just these are super easy supplements to get in your body. It's like these aren't hard. You're not having to swallow 87 pills or anything crazy like that. So
correct. And they're generally cheap, and you don't need a lot, right? The collagen, your body can only absorb so much in a day. You know, a single serving is a tiny scoop generally.
I promise you won't even notice it, but just add it to you won't notice it in your coffee, but 3 weeks later, I promise you'll notice how
you'll feel the difference.
And I would say, like in my experience, it's the joints.
Yeah.
It's especially when we were hitting CrossFit super heavy. You know, there was just a difference. If I hadn't been taking my collagen, I could just feel it in my knees and in my elbows. Yeah. But when I was, it's like a 9-day difference. It's not like, it's just like there's just no pain there. So it is. I think, in my opinion, it's one of the more magical things. And then also, as you're getting older, especially, like you're just more susceptible to strains, breaks, issues. You know, no one's stretching like you're supposed to.
I want to hear your third option. You said you had 3, right?
I had 2, although I did think of a
third. Sorry. Before that, I mean, joint is huge for me right now, especially. I'm turning 40 this year, so there's that. I'm not as active as I should be, so there's that's probably a contributing factor to joint pain.
Yeah.
Also, I got Lyme disease a number of years ago, and I've heard that as far as I know, it's cleared up, but I've heard there's like some like Lyme arthritis that might be a thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's mental or not, but like the past year or so, like my joints have just been more and more painful. And which is, you know, why I'm happy to talk to you. I brought along what I've been taking.
Yes.
It's a wilderness athlete. And when I started taking this, I asked Andy, like, hey, is this stuff all right? And like, is it actually working, or is it like all in my head? And Andy's like, well, stop taking it for a month and see what happens.
Yeah.
And I did that, and like the joint pain like did kind of come back. So I do think this is working.
Yeah.
But I definitely wanted to get like your opinions, like as an expert. Like, is this good? And I'm looking at the bottle while you're talking here, and like I don't know if I'm seeing what you're saying. At least on the collagen level.
Is there collagen in this?
I didn't see the word collagen, but.
No.
I don't know if it's got different
so I
names.
didn't see any collagen in there. Now, again, that doesn't mean it's not effective for you, right?
Yeah. Because, like, first and foremost on your website, when I saw it's like, hey, everybody is different.
Yes.
And that's what my main benefit, like, to talk to somebody like you is because we are all different.
Yep.
And you can't just buy some over-the-counter stuff and just assume it's going to work for whatever you've got going on.
Yes.
But
I will probably say this in a way that Andy has said it. We have worked together for so long.
Sure.
But there are some broad brushstrokes things like the vitamin D that I feel like
Sure.
it's appropriate for every single person. There are some other things that I suggest for every single person, but so many things, it is what one would call an N=1 experiment, right? So like you are your test subject. So you make a change and you make it 100% for 30 days. No slipsies.
Yeah.
And then you unmake it. And you just see the difference, how you look, how you feel, how you perform.
Yeah.
And if it's an overall improvement, it's an overall improvement. If it's not, then you don't need it. So with that being said, if you feel like you've gone hard on it for a month, you've come off of it for a month and you feel better on it, I'd say be on it. I still would suggest you add a collagen on top of that.
Absolutely.
Because that's going to
Supercharge
help.
that
Now, how much of that do you think is mental? Like, can your mind fabricate some of this?
Placebo effect is huge, but
Yeah.
here's the thing.
So I need to have my wife sneak this into my food for a month and then take it away for a month and not tell me?
You could, but it's also does it matter?
If you feel better.
If you
That's
feel
true.
better,
That's
does it
true.
matter?
That's true.
If it's cocaine, sure, it maybe matters. But for this, if the cost isn't prohibitive for you, if you feel better on it, doesn't matter.
So I guess my question to that is, I'm not saying this specific thing, but what are, we're kind of getting off topic or off on a tangent here, but what are the things that I guess could make you feel better, but are not good for you? Does that make sense? So it's
yeah. So
I imagine there's a lot of product on the market, like you said, stuff that's being sold to you that you don't really need. Yes, it's making you feel better, air quotes, but is there some side effect that we're not aware of, or?
I'm going to give you my answer, and I'm going to preface it by saying I don't think your audience will be super clutching their pearls over this, but I think
Others
a lot of people will be. Veganism and vegetarianism is am I allowed to swear on this podcast?
You are.
It's a fucking mistake. And here's the thing. A lot of people will make that switch and they do feel better. And maybe it's placebo, but I think they genuinely do feel better because it is still better than what they were doing. Sorry,
Right, sure.
I keep hitting my mic. If they go from a standard Western diet, they're eating McDonald's and they're eating pizza and whatever, and then they switch to something that is getting them more vegetables and fruits and general nutrition, then they probably do feel better.
Yeah. But you're still not getting everything you need.
And then it's let's revisit in a year.
Yeah.
Let's revisit in 2 years. And then all of a sudden it's they feel terrible. Their hair's falling out. Their bone density is down.
Weak, yeah.
They can't maintain muscle mass.
I know a few vegetarians, and a couple of them are doing great. A couple of them, like you said.
And this is the thing.
They do not look
the
great.
caveat to this is that if someone has a true protein enzyme that they cannot, their body for whatever reason cannot process, look, those things, vegetarianism and veganism exist for reasons.
Yeah.
A lot of it's sold to you, but some people
It's
have
certainly
to be
a
on
right
diets.
way to do it and a wrong
And again,
way.
it goes back to the advertised part. If it's being advertised, there's probably again, it goes back to just eat real food. If it was being advertised to you to be this vegan whatever supplement or vegan whatever this, it's well, they're using that as as a tool of some sort. And I think that's what you just said. I think is a great thing for people to think about, because what I want to get into is what are the baby steps of getting started with this.
Yeah.
And I think what people will find is if you're a big Coca-Cola drinker and you like to drink a lot of pops, a lot of sodas, that sort of thing, you take that out for 30 days, I promise you'll feel better. You don't need to be a vegan to do that.
Right.
You can be you can still eat McDonald's, just stop drinking Coke.
Right.
And see how you feel in 30 days. And these 30-day, the N1 test that you're talking about, 1 = N whatever tests, those are a great way for you to find out what does work really well for you. But I mean, spot on. Oftentimes, if this goes back to the curated information, the curated direction for people on what they should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing, because it's the easy button is I'm going to do this diet and I'm just going to push that. Well, again, that could be a good fit for you. Yeah. Are you just seeing the placebo effect of not eating a bunch of other garbage and you're actually just getting some nutrients for once, and that's really what's happening? I just think it's a solid point.
And just to sort of layer onto that, not to pile on too much, but whenever people ask me, like, should I do X? The question I have to come back to them with is why?
Yeah.
Why do you want to do it? Whether it's intermittent fasting, carnivore, keto, vegetarian.
What's the goal?
Why? I would also add on to that, I think that if we are talking about like a nutritional and lifestyle change where health is the goal, which for a lot of us, especially as we get older, it is, right? If you're a 20-year-old hard-hitting athlete, maybe not. But if health is the goal, do you really think that a nutritional protocol that absolutely requires supplementation for you to be healthy is correct, right? Because you can eat a whole foods diet and not need any supplements ever. But if you are a vegan, it's just not going to happen. Not long term, right? If you want to be
eventually
healthy.
you're going to not be getting
You're going to be deficient.
You're going to be deficient in some category.
So, and then lastly, you know, food is like religion. So I rarely ask this to people in person, but if they show that they're open to it, the other thing I would say is like, why do you think this is right? Because if you think it's for nutrition, like we can talk about why that's not actually it. And if you think it's for ethical reasons, we can definitely talk about why that's not actually it. And if it's for something else, if it's for a religion, if it's for a sickness, if it's, you know, it's like, sure. But a lot of the reasons that we are sold that these are the right ways to go are just people trying to sell you supplements or whatever.
Right. Well, let's kind of move into like some of these baby steps and things. So like again, this our audience typically are people who enjoy the idea of cooking. Also, a lot of us are wild game enthusiasts of sorts. So one of the things I just despise about our hunting community is our misunderstanding of nutrition in general. So you know, if like, some of our hunting brethren live on monsters and ding dongs from the gas station to and from the tree stand and things like that. And sometimes like look like those stuff, great ways to get your sugar levels up so you can get through power through a hunt. But at the same time, if that becomes your norm, these are things to kind of pull out. But again, best recommendations for like baby steps in getting started with this. Like where does someone actually start to make a change in their overall, like, you know, because oftentimes I would assume a lot of our audience maybe doesn't even know really what the why is, like why they really, other than they feel like they've been told they have to be healthier.
Yeah. So I'd say baby steps, assuming that like most of the population wants or needs to lose body fat, most of the population wants or needs to get healthier. So with those assumptions in place, I would say step one, don't drink your calories. Right? Black coffee, great. Water, great. A little bit of collagen, sure, I would count that more as a food than a drink.
Right, sure.
But drinking sodas or, you know, the coffee drinks from Starbucks or whatever, like you're not actually getting full on them. They're probably doing crazy things with your blood sugar that's making you have bigger cravings, more hungry later. So as a general rule, a great step one would be try not to drink your calories. I think a step two, and you can dial up the notch on this, is to the degree that you are able to replace processed foods with whole foods. And this doesn't have to be crazy, right? So if you're on a long ruck or whatever, I don't know what you would call like a long hunting trip. Like maybe you just replace a couple of your protein bars with some jerky instead.
Right. Sure.
Bonus, that's going to give you the electrolytes you need so that when you're drinking your water, you feel good, right? Yeah. Maybe you replace a pack of like M&M trail mix with some dried fruit.
Right.
It doesn't have to be crazy. And I imagine like the weight of what you're carrying matters. So I'm not suggesting that you like bring a ribeye and some bananas and like cook it up in the woods.
In the tree stand, a ribeye in the tree stand.
But just like something that is going to be like physically light, is going to have nutrition, and it's just going to have less of the processed crap.
Well, I love, so on your website, it's lean, mean, green.
Lean, mean, green, health.
leanmeangreenhealth.com. You've got a, it's what do you call it? It's like a replace this with that chart, and you can fill out your name, your email, get this information, and wonderful information. Lots of cool things like replace spaghetti with spaghetti squash. Replace this type of energy bar with a better quality energy bar, and lots of great information there just for starters.
Right.
Like just to
one of the things Caitlin told me really early on
switch your Twinkie with this.
Yeah, especially with protein bars are the hard ones because it's sold to you right there on the shelf. Like, oh, it has X amount of grams of protein in it. But one thing you told me from day one is that, Andy, if it looks like a candy bar, it probably is.
Yes.
So
Does it have chocolate on
if
top?
It's got, if it looks like it's got orange and yellow reminiscent of Reese cup, like there's a reason, friend.
Yeah.
That's not real.
Yes.
That's not good.
And then on top of that, this will sort of link to what we were just talking about, but these proteins they advertise on the bar, like make sure you're reading the label, because the protein in the bar is not the same as the bioavailable protein.
Sure.
Right? If it's a soy protein, if it's a pea protein, if it's a plant protein, it is almost never going to be as bioavailable as an animal protein.
So define bioavailable for Colton, who's not here.
Yeah. So like once it enters your body has to work to process it. And there are some things that either your body just cannot absorb very well, or the effort of your body absorbing it costs more than you get.
Okay.
Or at least costs some and creates a little deficit of what you're getting. So an animal protein, like, even if it's you're on the go and you grab something from the store, if it's a whey protein or an egg protein, that's going to be fully bioavailable. So if it says 30 grams, you're actually receiving 30 grams.
Okay.
Whereas if it's a soy or a protein or a pea, I'm not going to say it's none. It is some, but like maybe it's half that.
Right.
Maybe it's a third of that. Maybe it's 2/3 of that. But it's not as
It's not 1 to 1.
It's not as good.
advertised.
And that's one of the things I think that is also important for people to understand is that, again, veganism and vegetarianism is kind of pushed on people as like this healthier version of a protein. But yes, on the package while it sits on the table, protein to protein, you can probably find 2 things that match. Or maybe even one there's soy wins. Great. But the bioavailability of that protein is the thing that the people don't, it's never discussed. That's not written on the packaging, right? It just
Well,
says
I
what's
imagine
there.
just shelf life has a cost as well. So like how long has that thing been sitting there? You don't know.
Right. Especially at a gas station.
well,
Like is that protein breaking down and degrading? Absolutely
And
it is, but like
that's the amazing thing. One of the amazing things about animal protein is animal protein does not lose nutrition as it ages. So like an aged meat is just as nutritious as a fresh meat. With some exceptions, if you're talking about like the electrolytes you would get from like the blood in the meat or whatever. But otherwise, whereas like a vegetable or a fruit, as soon as you pick it, it starts to lose nutrient density. So that's something to consider too.
Which is one of our big conversations about jerky in general when we were talking about like so I have this like issue with making my massive venison roast that's this big into what will be like 4 strips of jerky. But like what Chris always says, like, but the protein count's still there. So it's like you're still getting you're just
the water.
Drink it, take your water with you and you got the same steak you just had.
Andy once brought me an enormous deer liver.
Well, I was with you. My buck's my buck's liver.
Yeah.
She took it. Yeah.
And I turned it into jerky because I want to like liver
jerky.
but I don't like
I'm
liver.
in that exact same boat.
So if I make it into a jerky, it's like I really just need a couple bites.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've never thought about liver
game changer.
jerky.
Your house will not smell good.
So do it outside.
Yeah, like you gotta air it out.
This is fantastic
Your house will
because
not smell.
next week I believe we have a Taboo Foods episode coming out. And we'll talk about liver
love
and
that.
nose to tail.
Well, my recipe for today might go well.
Yes, that's absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
Well, sorry. Before we get off protein bars, making your own versus a store bought. What do you have thoughts on that or
I think
experience?
I don't have any experience with it. I think that the more we can be connected with our food, the better.
Absolutely, yeah.
So as far as nutrition goes, I don't know.
Sure.
But I do think that we appreciate our food more and we sort of understand it more. Like if you make...
Oh, you definitely understand it more. I mean, you know exactly what's going in there.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's even if we're talking unhealthy foods, if you home make a cherry pie and you have like washed those cherries, you have peeled them, you have taken the seeds out, you have cooked them down, you've made the crust, it's like you're going to have a bigger appreciation for that pie. And like it's less likely, at least for me, that I'm going to like house the whole thing in one sitting because like you appreciate it more.
Right.
Yeah.
So nutrition aside, I think whenever you can, go for it. But I don't know otherwise.
Protein bar
Well, so
recipe.
what I was going to get at. So we so there's a lot of like we do this for comps, the protein balls that I would make, which are basically it's like oats, peanut butter, oftentimes some other honey or something else to stick it together. It's again some of the sugars, but again you're getting yourself some natural sugars, and again you can control the ingredients that go in.
Yeah.
So if you buy like good oats, you buy natural peanut butter and you buy natural honey and then you buy dried fruit to put in that, and then just basically whip up a big bunch of this, form it into balls, stick them in little cupcake holders, put them in the refrigerator, let them set up. Like, I'll tell you what, like, those things, not only are they delicious, but like, again, back to your point, you're not going to house the whole tray.
Yeah.
Because like it took a lot of time to make all that.
But yeah.
But like especially if you're
to take up into the tree stand, like something like that is
and
going to give you just as much energy.
Well, just like
going to be better for you.
We should add this to Caitlin's website. Let's replace my hunting brethren's going to attack me for this. Replace the Uncrustable with a couple of these.
Yeah.
Because
replace the Mountain Dew with this. Replace the Twinkies with that.
And it'll be amazing how much better that you feel. And the problem I think that people have here, so we're in a society of instant gratification. No matter what we're talking about, I mean, keep in mind, guys, we're talking about a 30-day test here.
Yeah.
30 days is a long time. It takes 21 days to build a habit and only 3 to break it. So this is one of those things where it's a commitment to it. And this is one of the things, like the getting started part. Like, I promise you will fail if you try to do all of this at once.
Yeah.
Please start with one thing. Do that one thing for 30 days. Then add in the next. One of the things that people, like Caitlin got me from a really fat, unhealthy 200 pounds to, 178 and looking like a fucking machine. But all of that was because of it wasn't overnight. It was we started at a certain starting point. Just hit these numbers. I don't care how you get there, just hit these numbers. And then we'll start looking at what in these numbers are we doing to adjust this. And so by the time I got to the point where people were like, oh my gosh, you basically eat just chicken and rice, you count all these macros, you actually hit your protein goals and you drink all this water, how are you doing all this? I'm like, I don't even know, because for me it wasn't overnight. It was a 6-month journey to get to a place where real true effects can happen. But this goes back to look, you're going to live your life a long time, hopefully. That's the goal. So what is a couple of months of trying to work yourself into a better sustainable habit?
100%.
Yes. And I always feel like people think I'm trying to talk them out of something when I try to really stress, make no mistake, it will be hard. The first 2 weeks especially, it will be hard. And that's okay. It is okay. Right? It's okay to acknowledge it. It's okay to be pissed about it.
If it were easy, we'd all be healthy.
Right. Yeah. And it's okay. Just let it be hard.
Well, and as people don't understand the addictive nature of sugar.
Correct.
Oh gosh.
And that's where most of if we were to point at one thing that we're talking about that's problematic in most people's diets, it has something to do with an unhealthy relationship with sugar or fat.
Yeah.
And those two chemicals, the reason why you like the taste of a juicy steak and the reason why you like the taste of those sweet treats is the fat content is literally what your ancestral body. Those are the things they didn't have a bunch of.
Right.
So when they had them, oh man, it was get them in, because they don't tend to last very long. So they had to get all that stuff in, and so that becomes this thing where you're truly addicted to things that you don't even really understand that you're addicted to, and it takes a couple weeks to get off of it.
And when one of the reasons I'm so adamant about trying to reduce or remove processed foods is because these processed foods are designed by food chemists to be what we call hyperpalatable.
Chemists, not cooks.
No,
not chefs.
right. They have, food engineers do this too, right?
Oh, yeah.
They design it to be this perfect level of salty, sweet, fatty, that it literally overrides the satiety signals in your brain so that you just want more and more and more of it. But also, your palate...
Because their goal is to sell and to make money, not to
more.
Get you into a better person.
But your palate also... It's every time you eat these processed foods, it just gets this avalanche of flavor, so that when you first transition to eating real food, people will tell, I don't like fruit. I don't like vegetables. And it's I know it's not a Twinkie. I get that it's not that good, but you've got to let that palate reset so that in a couple of weeks, when you eat a steak, when you eat a banana, it's holy shit, this is delicious. You just got to let it reset.
Yeah.
Caitlin's favorite thing is she's convinced her children that vegetables are candy.
Yes. Yes. You need to talk to my my 4-year-old.
Oh, this is candy. They're I've never seen kids legitimately excited about carrots, but her kids.
They're good eaters. I'm lucky.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Right on. Okay. So again, we kind of talked a lot about where to start. one of the things I want to talk about, like, as we just said, it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things I want people to understand is like what happens when you relapse. Because I promise you, I've been doing this a long time. I got down to 178 and your boy's back up to 195. Like, I mean, things, your bodies adjust, seasons of life happen, things happen.
Fact.
Like, what do you do to, like, what are some of the key things to getting through that relapse period and into like how to get back on track?
Yeah. So 2 things. One is do not make up for it.
Right.
Like if you have a Saturday night and you go out drinking with your buddies and then you order pizzas and you eat a whole pizza by yourself at 2 a.m., whatever it is, I think the natural instinct, or maybe it's not natural, but the instinct for a lot of people is, okay, Sunday then, I'm going to like eat nothing, I'm going to cleanse, and then what happens on Monday? You're overly hungry, your blood sugar's off, you feel terrible, so then you overeat again on Monday. And it turns into this yo-yo thing. So don't make up for it. Just go right back to your plan. For me, it's like, even if I'm not that hungry, right? Maybe I'm like super full from the whole pizza I ate. And it's like, I don't care. I'm eating my protein macro because it's not about today. It's about tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And the other thing is,
you just gotta like keep that momentum steady.
Right. Well, that's a huge point because that is exactly what people do. It's like, oh, I ate like shit yesterday, so today I'm just not going to eat anything at all.
Right.
And it's like, no. Like you're setting up your tomorrow to be a failure, and that's the part of it that like if you just just get back to it, is a great next step.
Right. Because one day is a drop in the bucket, right? But you gotta not let it become 1 week. So just you're back to it. And then the other thing is, I think that this thought of, I got to do this thing my whole life, or I've got to eat clean all week, or it can just really like weigh us down. And it seems like such a mountain, right? Yeah. But you're 1 meal away. You are 1 meal away from being on track. So it's like, don't worry about tomorrow. Don't worry about tonight. Just have your clean breakfast. 1 meal at a time, right? Yeah. You have the breakfast that you know you're supposed to have, and then all of a sudden, look at you. You're back on track. And then all of a sudden, it's like, not that you need to do it, you're already doing it.
Right. And this is like one of my this is a Jerry Seinfeldism, but it's just he talks about building a chain. So like basically when he was writing jokes, he'd write 1 joke a day and then cross out that day, and if you look at that on a calendar, it starts building a chain. And it's not about writing 1,000 jokes. It's about building the chain, 1 joke at a time. So like to your point, 1 meal at a time is how you actually do this for a long period of time. It's not just
like you said, trying to do everything all at once. Man, like you're setting yourself up for failure.
Well, so and because it's a mental, like this is hard. Your body's coming off of addictive substance. You're setting this is a hard thing to do. Right. The last thing you want to do is pile on a bunch of emotional pressure. Because you think that like you're going to be a failure if you miss out on 1 meal. It's like, well, to your point, it's a drop in the bucket, but you're 1 meal away from getting back on track.
Yeah. And I guess you made me think of one other thing, which is just, it is okay to take a meal or a day off. It's okay to go on vacation and take a week off. You just have to categorize it as like, this is why I work so hard, right? I work so hard so that I have some athletes who get so focused, and barring my ones who are really trying to they're trying to make it to the CrossFit Games. They are trying to make it to Kona for a triathlon. Barring those people where it's like, we're just in a season of life where we don't get to have fun days. Yeah. But that aside, life is not sustainable without pleasure. And you've got like your nutrition plan isn't going to be sustainable without pleasure. So when those days come, I don't want you to even open your phone I don't even want you to open your food tracking app. Turn it off. I'll talk to you on Monday. Have fun. But then on Monday, like we're back to it.
At it. Yeah. Which I will say is probably the reason I was so successful is that I did have a cheat day, scheduled cheat days, and I didn't have to log it. And it is one of those things that does definitely help. But what is interesting about it, the more and more you get better at doing more and more of the good days in a row, your cheat days become less fun. They become, because you start feeling how crappy you feel the next day. Or like, oh man, like, I mean, I'll go out and drink, but like maybe I'll just stick with vodka sodas and not have like 14 beers. You know, it's like.
I tell you what, man, like my food hangovers now are worse than my alcohol hangovers. Like I can go out drinking, and if I eat clean the next day, I'm pretty good. But if I eat pizza or chips, like man, I feel like crap for like 2 days. Yeah.
And it is one of those things that once it comes out of your system, you're going to thank yourself later, because it becomes easier and easier to say no to those things. So when people say, like, well, how do you say no to this? I'm like, well, because I know what I'm going to feel like tomorrow.
It's like what Corey mentioned. Like, most of us are more gluten intolerant than we think we are.
Yes.
So just you don't know like what you're missing out on. Like, so like living your life eating McDonald's and Starbucks drinks every day. Like, you don't know like what this is, like the weight that you're carrying.
We brought up literally on one of the last
figuratively
podcasts about gluten intolerance, and I was like trying to remember all the things you've told me about how it doesn't matter what you think you are gluten intolerant. It's not a thing you're supposed to have.
But like once you take that away, then you start to feel like yourself. You start to feel like you should be feeling.
And for the people who insist they are not, it's like, that's so awesome for you. Have you removed it for 30 days? Because if you have, and you are certain it hasn't snuck in anywhere, and you add it back in and you feel fine, it's like, high five, you're so lucky.
Eat all the bread. Eat all the bread. Tell me what it tastes like.
Yeah. But just for so many of us, because of the way it has been sort of like bastardized over the years and the amount of chemicals in North America, at least, that we put on it and all these things, it's almost impossible not to have some sort of inflammatory response to it. But if you have that inflammatory response every day, maybe you just think you have acne. You don't realize that you have inflammation, or maybe you just think you get headaches or whatever.
No, it's one of those. It is one of the ones that, again, has just been so screwed, especially my trip to Italy and actually eating old world wheats.
Yes.
Like I drank so much wine. I ate so much pasta. And I woke up the next day and I felt fucking fine. It just would not have happened here. Like if I did the same thing here in the States, it just wouldn't have happened. And I don't know how else to explain it other than just like, well, they don't put all that crap on the things, but because they're not trying to, we talked about this in one of our other episodes. Like the beauty of this country is that we have a lot of people, and to sustain a lot of people, we have to do certain things to make the food sustainable for all of those people, and that's where a lot of this started. If you look back, like people didn't start adding things to the wheat to try to like make us unhealthy. It was to make it last longer, and that was the whole goal.
Well, and it was because people were starving during the wars, so they grew the wheat to have more on the chaff so we could feed our soldiers, and it just spiraled. And
then you fast forward and you layer that out, and this is where the idea of the systemic problem of this is like, well, the true roots of this had really good intentions, but it's now been taken advantage of and it's been monetized, and thus now we have this situation where we have to like unlearn and look at that curated information, because as you said, you look the stuff online, you're going to find all these studies that say whatever they want it to say, because people that own the companies that are making the things are the ones paying for the studies.
Exactly.
Correct. So it's not like, it's very hard for people to wrap their head around, because like, what are you supposed to actually believe? But this goes back to what you said at the very top of this, is eat real food.
Yeah.
Like, one of the things we talk about in like all of our recipes that we talk about these fresh ingredients. Chris, Colton, and Corey all garden. Colton's got chickens. Like, these are all things that you can start. Like, that's an extreme level, but just go when you go to the grocery store. Stay on the perimeters. You know? Don't go in the middle. You know?
Yeah. Exactly.
And you're going to be in just a lot better shape all around. So,
well, real quick, are there any other myths that you could bust for us real quick?
Oof.
Off the top of your head?
I feel like the pushing plant proteins is the big one for me, just because it's so demonstrably untrue. And then I think overall, just when people reach for a supplement before wondering, can I get this from food? Because it's not just about your budget, although it is, right? Supplements tend to be expensive, and it's not even just about what else is coming along with that supplement. Like, maybe there's some preservatives, maybe there's something in the capsule. Yeah. But also, food is intended to be digested as food, right? And vitamins and minerals are intended to be absorbed in their whole form. So when we pull these things out, our modern science, the hubris of it is, you eat oranges. Why are oranges healthy? Oranges are healthy probably because of vitamin C. Who needs an orange? Just take this vitamin C supplement. But is your body really absorbing it the same way?
Sure.
I think there's a lot to show that it's not. And wouldn't it be easier if you were just feeding your body and getting all of your supplements at the same time? Creatine drives me crazy. If you are eating enough protein, stop taking creatine. You are just
take so much
throwing
creatine.
It there.
No.
And here's the thing. If you're not eating enough protein, fine. But creatine is in the protein you're eating.
Well, and I think this is the one of the most, it's the most studied, it's the most produced, it's the most discussed supplement of all the supplements is in fact creatine, because the thing that people, again, the thing you're not hearing is that I guarantee you most of y'all are not getting your protein.
Correct. It's a big caveat. It's a big caveat.
Yeah. So if you're hitting your protein macro numbers, and as we talked about this, if you go back and listen to the meal prepping episode, I have basically just quote Caitlin the whole time. If you're hitting your protein goals, it's probably not necessary for what you're trying to do.
Right.
Now, again, barring the fact that you're an athlete who's trying to accomplish some sort of thing, and thus you're using this as a way for you to recover at a certain rate so that you can continue to build. That is where that supplement is. I mean, it works. It just hands down works. But I would also say that you're correct that the reason you're hearing about this and why it's studied the most is because people are not getting their protein.
Right.
Sure.
And then, because there's only so much your body can absorb in a day.
Right.
So if you're eating your protein, then I would say even on top of that, if you're like me and you're hitting that protein number almost exclusively with red meat, you just don't eat it. You just do not need it. You're just peeing it out. It's a waste of your money. Sure. But that's just a smaller portion of the population.
Right. Because again, sometimes it is really hard. And we don't want to glaze over the fact that, like, again, we've talked about in certain episodes with Jason about the food desert scenarios. And there's a lot of places where you can't get some certain things.
Absolutely.
So this is where, like, again, supplements, the nature of them are not bad, but just remember what the name of the thing is, man.
Right.
It's a supplement. It's to supplement something you cannot get.
Yeah.
And if you're getting it, you don't need the supplement.
Right. Yep. And of course, we're sitting here talking about what is ideal or what is best. And there are scenarios where it's not ideal, it's not best. And then it's like you just get as close to it as your budget and your surroundings and your circumstances allow.
Very fair.
Yeah.
Very fair. Where are we at?
Awesome.
Are we ready to jump into this recipe?
Yeah, we can talk about the recipe.
So again, Caitlin, as you're getting your notes pulled up here,
Yes.
we end each episode with a recipe. Usually it's one of the guys has to pick something or something that we're doing here. We get to share. We get to share. So excited to have you kind of host this one, and I think again rolling into future episodes. This is going to be is going to be a good one. So,
what have you got for us?
I order a half cow at a time from a local farmer. I love her. The cows are fed with like their own, like they raise.
Yeah. Who do you get from?
Her name. Well, so have you heard of prancing ponies?
I don't think so.
It's like a.
No, we haven't.
It's like a. So it's
talking
like
about the bar in Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah, is that what it's called?
I think so. Is it?
I'll have to ask her if it's related. No, so it's like a birthday party rent. You can rent like their horses, or they have summer camps, but they also have a farm where they raise a certain amount of steer per year.
That's cool.
And it's truly the most delicious meat I've ever had. Yes. And I think part of it is because everything they feed it, like they also grow, which is great. So, but when I get these half cows, they're always like, oh, like, do you want the offal? Do you want the bones? And I'm like, you better believe I do. I'll take everybody else's too.
Give it to me.
Yeah. And I have fallen in love with oxtail stew. I love it.
Fantastic.
So I was actually able to find the recipe that I originally found that I'm just going to sort of go through, but then also there's some changes that I personally make that I'll sort of touch on. So it starts with oxtail, right? 2 to 3 pounds. And what you're going to want to do first is like cut the oxtail into the little like joints, cut it into little digits. And then add salt and pepper. I like to do a lot. I'm a like strong seasoning person.
Yes.
You're going to get a pan, get your cooking oil. I like butter or olive oil or tallow, something like that. I do like butter. And you're going to sear it, right? So once you sear that, I like to get it enough so that those little burnt pieces are on the pan because we're going to deglaze it later.
Yes.
Fond.
Fond from, that's what it's called.
What is it called?
Fond. F-O-N-D.
What is the fond?
The crispies.
Oh, those are called fond.
Yes, it's called fond.
The burnt bits.
Oh,
burnt bits.
See, I didn't know.
Not burnt. They're brown crispy.
They're brown
bits,
crispy bits. It's called fond.
Hopefully they're not burnt.
Yeah. Although I personally like a little char flavor.
There you go.
Personally, yeah. So you're gonna, brown it, stir it. After that, drain off as much of the oil as you can. You're gonna put that into like a big crock pot.
Okay.
I'm a one pot meal, slow cooker kind of girl. From there, you're gonna add onions, green onions if you can find them, garlic, thyme, allspice. The allspice, I like to add the whole allspice berries.
Berry, not the ground.
Like you can do the ground, but it's
you can get them out later. Though. You pull them out later.
You can pull them out later. I'll leave them in. But
crunch on 'em?
yeah, I like strong flavors.
Yes, love it.
Smoked paprika. I put in a ton. I love paprika. You're stirring all that around. The recipe calls for Scotch bonnet pepper, which I like. But if you're not a big spice person, you can do a jalapeno. You can do a green pepper if you want to like leave the spice all the way out.
Sure.
Whatever. Pick a pepper. We've got tomato paste. I generally do a can. If you like bouillon,
like tiny cans,
little guy,
sure,
little can. If you like bouillon cubes, throw in a bouillon cube. If not, just make sure you're putting in plenty of salt, and then curry powder. Stir that all up.
man.
And then, so the recipe originally calls for carrots, beans, and potatoes. I don't really like to cook with beans. I feel like it makes the stew mushy.
Mushy, yeah. Or it thickens it to a level like if it feels more stew. Like, well, I don't know, like thicker. I don't know.
I don't want it to feel like a puree.
Right.
Like I want the broth to be a thing.
Sure.
And the broth is so good. So I don't
It's
add
like just a thinner soup is what you prefer.
Yeah. And like I like it to be hearty. I don't want a lot of broth, but I want the broth to be its own defined thing.
Yeah.
So I just do the carrots and the potatoes. I like to peel the potatoes because my boys don't like the potato skin. Yeah. And so then we are slow cooking that for, let me just make sure I've got the time right. Yeah, like 7 to 8 hours.
Yeah.
So it's
right?
a long way.
What I do too is, as I was saying before, I will deglaze the pan. I like to do it with something acidic. So maybe it's like an apple cider vinegar. I also like to throw in personally a little bit of coconut aminos. I just like that sort of like acidic kick to it because oxtail soup tends to be really fatty. And so it's just a really nice balance. What I suggest as well, as it's cooking, let's say it's 6 hours in, you have two options here. I like to take the lid off and just skim some of the fat off the top. You want that fat in there. It's delicious. It's healthy. It adds the flavor. But you don't want somebody to take a spoonful and it's just this
fat.
melted fat.
Sure.
Or if you're cooking it ahead of time, you can stick it in the fridge and then it's really easy to pull the fat off of it. And all that gelatin is still in there.
Yeah.
I personally, when I make it, I also make some homemade cornbread.
Oh my gosh.
I was gonna say you were dipping
So
this
good.
in something.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Corey got excited. He's not even here. Corey his ears perked up.
Yeah. I just add a couple cups of water and just let it cook and cook and cook.
Oh my gosh.
It's so
That sounds
good.
awesome. Yes.
Yes.
That's awesome. No, it's a part of, and again, I'm a big fan of venison neck, so a neck roast, and it's a lot of the same reasons, a lot of the same profiles. But
Or just cooking with the bone in the meat.
Oh, it's so good. And talk about the collagen, like right there, like
Exactly.
It's loaded. I
Yes.
promise you.
Yes, correct. And it's so tasty, guys.
Yeah.
It's so
We got
good.
like call it in the marrow, like all the stuff
It's
in
got
there.
all, yeah. And then so I don't personally mind that it's a little, I wouldn't call it a challenge to eat. It's just a little bit different, right? Because the meat is wrapped around the bone there. If you're
like
cooking it long
ossobuco.
enough
Yeah,
and
it's fancy. It's
and
fancy.
tender enough, it's sort of falling off the bone anyways. And then
And
exactly.
you can, if you've got a guest that's a little, wary about seeing a bone on their plate,
Peel
just
it out.
prep it.
Make
for
it ahead of
them.
time. Exactly. No
Take
problem.
off the bone, shred it.
Put it back in the soup, and you're not even gonna know that it's oxtail at that point. And that's one of my favorite things about a
Guarantee
venison
they'll like it.
neck roast is that like if you pull that meat off of it. I mean, I made tacos out of it, and people just thought it was just venison. They didn't know
Right.
idea that it was.
Yeah.
Like, who cares where it came from off the deer?
That's what I've done.
Does it matter?
That's what I do with heart. I feel like tacos are the
Heart
best way
taco,
to go.
absolutely.
Yeah.
He knows that's my.
We need to come back and have another taboo food
Yeah.
conversation with
She
you.
loves the
And
awful-
liver jerky, oxtail. Like,
Yeah.
You're full of
Make it
recipes.
weird. Yeah.
Let's make
Love
it
it.
weird.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
awesome.
I love this so much.
Yeah.
Gosh, I was gonna say something else, but the food, just like
Yeah, I know. Now I want oxtail stew at
Yeah.
8 in the morning.
So tell us, I guess, give everyone like where's the best ways to find you if they want to follow you.
Yeah.
Talk about the gym. Talk about all the things.
Yes. So leanmeangreenhealth.com is the website at leanmeangreenhealth. And then we are at Mad Farmer Fitness, which is madfarmerfitness.com. And then you can also find us at Mad Farmer Fitness.
yes. And I just highly recommend listeners to like talk to somebody.
Yeah.
You could probably take phone calls, right? So anybody
Yeah.
can call you just
Yep.
to discuss certain things.
Yeah, my nutrition and health coaching work is 100% remote. So
Yeah.
I have athletes that are local, but I have a ton of athletes that are not local. So that's
Yeah.
no problem.
Yeah. So don't hesitate to reach out with questions. I imagine
she will help you better understand and make sure that again, said it at the beginning. Outside of Eat Real Food, also everyone is different. So what will work for your friend Sally may not work for you, and that is okay. That's probably very normal. So that's why it's important to talk to somebody.
But Caitlin can help you understand your body, kind of like your process. And
we can do it.
Almost like build a plan specifically for you.
Exactly that.
Yep.
Awesome.
Everything I do is personalized to the person.
Yeah. Love it. Yes.
To the person.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, on this oxtail soup note, huge thanks to our partner, Outdoor Edge Knives. You're going to want a sharp knife
to cut the joints
or bone saw to cut through all of this stuff. So go over to outdooredge.com and type in OKC20 for 20% off a knife kit. So you can prepare your oxtail. I wonder what a deer tail soup, would that be good?
Venison tail soup.
It's not going to be bad. We'll try it.
It's a small tail.
We'll try it out and report back to you. But appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Perfect.
And is it lunchtime yet now?
I know. Now I'm ready for breakfast.
Right. 8 hours away from oxtail soup.
Yes.